The Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra. Is this the new sweet spot in the Samsung Galaxy lineup? If you're looking to save a few bucks, if you don't need the latest and greatest in the Samsung releases, you don't need the whatever new feature they have on the S23 Ultra that's trying to tempt you, or you just don't want to spend $1,300 to get a similarly spec'd phone, then the S22 Ultra might be an option for you. No one needs to tell you about the specs of this device at this point, okay? That's a joke. The thing's been out forever. You've probably watched 30 videos on this device. I wanted to go over two things, or actually probably three things. Number one is, how is it running on OneUI 5.1? How is it held up, and what improvements have they made to the software, and is it running well because of those things? That's the first one. Second one, I want to go over the major flaw that I don't think they've fixed, and it's been something that we've been complaining about for a year, and it's something you're going to have to decide whether it's okay or not for you to purchase. And number three is the price. What's the exact price point it's going to make sense to get an S22 Ultra at? I'm going to include my pick in the descriptions down below. It's going to be Amazon renewed, and it's kind of a spoiler. It's going to be around $600. But let's talk about the range, because there is quite a range when we're talking about the S22 Ultra. Software, OneUI 5.1, running the April patch, no problems whatsoever. That's the one thing that you never had to worry about with your S22 Ultra. You never had to say, oh, geez, I don't know about future-proofing with it. If you get the 12GB model, if you have it running OneUI 5.1, it is going to be silky smooth and go blow for blow with the S23 Ultra. The S23 Ultra, is it a beat faster? Yeah. Is it a little smidge smoother? Absolutely. But this is no slouch, and it's not anything you're going to notice when you're talking about a year-to-year upgrade from the S22 to the S23. The S22 is still an absolutely monster device that's going to be just fine in no matter what you want to do, whether it's Twitter, day-to-day stuff. And look at how smooth that is. I mean, people talk about how smooth the scroll for Twitter is on the S23 Ultra. That's pretty darn smooth as well, and I think some of it at least has to do with the optimizations of OneUI 5.1 and how gorgeous it is. I just think it's the best Android distribution out there. And if you can't afford that $1,300, that $1,200 on a brand new S23 Ultra, but you still want an S Pen, the S22 Ultra is going to get you most of that performance, if not the same amount of performance, and you're going to be able to run the best Android distribution currently at a flagship level. That's tough to put a price on, but it is something that is possible here. So software-wise, I don't think you're going to have any issues with the S22 Ultra here. The one thing that they really haven't fixed, and I thought maybe they could fix it in software, I thought maybe OneUI could take a crack at it, is that battery life. It just refuses to get better. It's a 5,000 milliamp hour battery in here in a flagship device, and I was expecting 6.5, 7 hours of screen on time, and it never even made it close to that. I am still just barely over 5 hours of screen on time, and the one thing that's persisted with the S22 Ultra, which I was really hoping that they'd alleviate somehow in software or do something with the modem software or something, is the battery drain. The battery drain on these is still significant. I lost 20% overnight. I left this off the charger to test it. 20% in 7 hours. That's significant, and that's something that I've noticed right from the beginning that really hasn't gotten better. This is a device that if you sat down and you used it, you're going to play a game, you're going to scroll the internet, you're going to sit there on TikTok for a half an hour. You could sit there and wail on the S22 Ultra and not see the battery go down. You'd literally use a percentage point or two in a half hour of heavy usage just going to town on this. But then you'd put it aside, you'd lock it up, and you go do something else for an hour and a half and come back down to 5% battery drain. So it wasn't necessarily that the battery itself was bad. It's just that the drain was bad. You want to blame it on 5G? You want to blame it on network stuff? I get a lot worse battery performance around the area that I'm in than a lot of other people get. Whether it's because I'm on a borderline 5G area, so the towers are, the modem is constantly trying to switch between 5G and 4G LTE, and it's struggling to maybe find or exist on a weaker 5G signal, so it's using more power to the modem in order to grab and kind of amplify that and kind of struggle with a 5G signal as opposed to going down to a 4G signal. I did that video a long time ago where I turned off 5G on here and got 45 minutes more of screen on time, which is significant. When you're talking about 5 hours, that's almost an extra hour of screen on time. You're looking at 20% more screen on time. It's significant. So that's something that you could do as well. But if you need 5G, if you're getting it for the 5G, just keep in mind that battery drain and the poor battery life that we've experienced basically since the launch of the S22 Ultra is still there. So please keep that in mind. The last thing is the price. I talked about $600 for this. If you can get this, the 12 gig version of this device for $600, to 12 gigs 256 version of this for $600, $650, somewhere around there, you're winning. You really are. To be able to get this device, it's only a year old. You're still looking at 3 major updates of Android and 4 years of support on here, so it's no slouch. It's not going away anytime soon. You're not gonna start testing the limits of the power on the S22 Ultra for at least another year or two, unless you're doing heavy gaming and they come out with the ray tracing stuff. You're really not going to be taxing this device a whole lot in the next few years. So to get it at $650 with this just absolutely gorgeous Samsung panel, better, I think, because of the fact that it's a little bit more saturated than the S23 panel, running at 120 hertz with the S Pen, with all the bonuses, the better speakers, with all the bonuses that this device has, $650 is an absolute steal. But get that 12 gig version. You could see them online. And listen, if you don't care about the RAM, if you're only going to keep it for a couple years, there are the 8 gig versions, the 8 gig 128s going for like $449 or something, Amazon renewed, which is a really great deal. If you're not worried about the RAM, that might be an option for you. If you're just looking for the design and the performance, you could pick one of those up. But I think $600 is the way to go here. If you're looking to get these new, they're still north of $800. And when you're talking that, my theory would be this: if you're spending over $800 to get this new, I would say hold off, scrounge a few extra dollars together, and get the S23 on a deal. Or get a trade-in somehow, or arbitrage where you'll figure out what they're giving for a trade for a Note 9 or something like that, and pick one up cheap maybe on eBay and trade that in. Figure out a way to game the system a little bit to not pay. Get the new one. If you're paying over $800, find a way to score yourself an S23 Ultra at this point, as opposed to going with an S22 Ultra for that kind of money. But like I said, $600 for that 12 gig version, $650 I think is the sweet spot for this one. And Samsung kind of disappointed me with the pricing on the S23 Ultra. I was like, oh, it's the same as last year. Well, sort of. That base one, that $1,200 one last year, was the 12 gig 256 gig. They kind of kept that free upgrade for a long time last year, and they kind of made the 8 gig version disappear. This year, they're not doing that so far. They're keeping the 8 gig version there. They're making you pay the $1,300, $1,700 to get yourself the 12 gig version. And I think if you want that flagship experience, it helps with gaming. People say you don't need that. Well, gaming stuff, if you're doing more intense gaming, the 12 gigs is going to help you cashing in larger worlds. If you're a Genshin Impact player, you're going to want as much cashed in there as possible when you're going from different areas and stuff. So make sure that you can get yourself a phone that gives you the most capability for the money that you're paying. But if you can get one of these, you're going to be fine. Don't be lured in. When we had the comparison video between the S22 and the S23 Ultra, I kind of went over this. Don't get lured in by just the latest and greatest. This is still the latest and greatest, okay? It's still going to do more than everything that you're going to need it to do, and in a premium package for a much less than premium price. So if you could take advantage of that, go ahead and do it. If you've made it this far, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Until next time, have that Steve-licious day.